The American empire has always treated its neighbors to the south like colonies. The Dominican Republic gained attention in the late 1800s as sugar became a profitable worldwide commodity. American and European banks loaned its leaders huge sums of money to develop this industry, but much was stolen or wasted as wealthy elites schemed to become wealthier. It was impossible to repay these debts, so with the nation on the brink of defaulting, France, Germany, Italy, and the Netherlands sent warships to Santo Domingo to press claims. To preempt European military intervention, United States President Theodore Roosevelt introduced the Roosevelt Corollary to the Monroe Doctrine, declaring that the United States would assume responsibility for ensuring that the nations of Latin America met their financial obligations. Roosevelt stated that in keeping with the Monroe Doctrine, the United States was justified in exercising, quote, international police power to put an end to the chronic unrest or wrongdoing in the Western Hemisphere. While the Monroe Doctrine had sought to prevent European intervention, the Roosevelt Corollary was used to justify American intervention throughout the hemisphere. After threatening military intervention, in January 1905, the United States was allowed control the Dominican Republic's customs operation that produced most of the government's income and diverted 55% to pay foreign debts. This led to political infighting and economic instability that hurt profits of foreign investors. In 1914, American President Woodrow Wilson demanded the appointment of an American Director of Public Works and the creation of a new military force commanded by U.S. Army officers. The Dominican Congress rejected these demands. As a result, in May 1916, 1,800 U.S. Marines landed and attacked the small Dominican Army and its militia. Fighting lasted 2 months as hundreds of Dominicans were killed. President Wilson appointed a US Navy Admiral as governor, who implemented reforms that improved the nation, while a dozen American sugar companies acquired 81% of sugar estates. Dominicans resented the loss of their sovereignty to foreigners, and strikes and protests caused problems while U.S. Marines battled insurgents. The cost of the ongoing occupation was unpopular in the United States, and 144 Marines had been killed, so American President Warren Harding ordered a withdrawal in 1924. The U.S. military had selected and trained officers for a new Dominican army who ensured American business interests were protected. This led to the military dictatorship of General Rafael Trujillo, who ruled the nation with an iron hand for 31 years. The American CIA was stunned by the 1959 Cuban Revolution. The use of bribery, threats, mass propaganda, and assassinations had been used to control Latin American nations for 30 years, but failed in Cuba. Years of bloody oppression in the Dominican Republic had created a similar political environment with thousands of dissidents. They began organizing forces to overthrow General Trujillo, just as his brutal and corrupt friend, dictator Fulgencio Batista, had been ousted in Cuba. General Trujillo's human rights record was appalling and criticized by leaders everywhere. The Americans were reluctant to assist him remain in power and even threatened to invade to depose him. Yet his overthrow could lead to a Cuban-style revolutionary government that might seize American sugar estates. As a result, the American CIA organized a coup in 1961, and General Trujillo was assassinated. The Americans organized elections and secretly supported Juan Bosch for president. He was an honest, popular dissident who had fled Trujillo's tyranny many years before. Bosch easily won the election in 1962 that ended the threat of a communist revolution. Problems soon arose because American foreign policy promotes democracy while often rejecting the results. Bosch implemented reforms to help the nation's poor by raising taxes and imposing regulations to improve the health and welfare of Dominicans. This upset the Dominican upper class and American business interests, so in 1963, the CIA organized another coup that ousted Bosch and installed General Wesson as military dictator. This led to an armed rebellion by Bosch supporters who seized the nation's capital of Santo Domingo. American President Lyndon Johnson branded Bosch a communist, even though he was democratically elected with the support of the United States. President Johnson feared the loss of America's Dominican colony, so ordered 23,000 American troops to invade. In May 1965, U.S. Marines landed, and soldiers from the 82nd Airborne Division arrived. More than 3,000 Dominicans and 27 American servicemen lost their lives during this fight to crush democracy and restore a puppet dictatorship. Another 156 Americans were wounded. Trujillo loyalist Joaquin Balaguer was appointed president and ruled with an iron hand for many years. Most American troops left after a few months, but some remained until September 1966 to conduct a massive propaganda campaign to ensure democratic forces were suppressed to maximize foreign profits. Economic turmoil since then resulted in mass immigration of Dominicans to the United States.